Welcome back to the channel. We're doing a league landscape, the first iteration of this series, guys, where we just look at one of my teams in one of the leagues I play in. And look, with this, we got a BDGE league. So shout out to Nick, shout out to now Adam and Andrew, that BDGE Dynasty channel. We were able to get in this league by virtue of that BDGE Discord, setting up like-minded people that are trying to win football games in a Dynasty fantasy sense. So this startup was a 12-team Superflex league, as you can probably tell by now, and start 10, 4 point per pass touchdown, full PPR, only a .5 tight end premium league. So pretty vanilla settings for the most part. And just looking at my team here, guys, I was at the 108 in terms of the startup draw. You can see I made a pick. My Eagles bias kind of influenced me all the way to get to the 103. And that was a mistake whereby I just wanted Jalen Hurts. I wanted to get a specific player. And so I let kind of those feelings kind of get in the way, where I then made a huge mistake in trading away thirds, fourths, fifths, a very lopsided, uneven deal where I forewent these premium picks and startups for nothing, not even a 1-to-1 in terms of picks return, just to be able to get my guy. And so I really was at a disadvantage from the start. But then I made an Anthony Richardson pick at the 205, which the big kicker with this league, it was pre-NFL draft. So with Sleeper, with the ADP, it's really weird. And there was a lot of arbitrage, quote unquote, opportunities for me to realize some value and to get some really buy lows on rookies, as it would soon become very clear as we get into this video. But Rich there, so that was kind of my QB duo, and I didn't even pick again until the 4-5. And so then I went Travis Kelce. That was the idea, was to contend. It's a little bit of a high stakes, somewhat league. And then I didn't have another picks again until Zay Flowers, Dalton Kincaid. And so that was a big time opportunity for me to get some rookie values again, which the Kincaid pick in particular was a mocked and ridiculed pick. Okay. At the time, though, as a Monday morning draft analyst, to be clear, this was right after the NFL draft, and people had said, oh, well, is he even going to be, for him to even be anywhere close to this value, have to have a Pat Fryermuth type of season. And so people would like to assume the worst, right? In that ambiguity, that uncertainty at the time. But who would have thought Kincaid would be a first round pick, went to the Bills? Well, me to some degree, not quite that magic ball, but I believed in picking the rookies to then generate the upside, and that is huge from just a startup standpoint. Okay, I want to get that message across, regardless of what the settings might be and what you might want to do as a contender, right, or a bona fide rebuilder. Then it's easy to just pick rookies, but just some food for thought, some important context, because man, did I really bail myself out, as well as it'll become very clear the rest of this video. But then went with a DeAndre Hopkins, Jimmy G as a QB3, which now it's really a hole in my roster. Lockett, Cedric Tillman, and then as you can see in a second here, Devin Achane at the 13-3. Huge time, big time pickup and value there. And then a McBride pick, Gray, some rookie running backs again, some Zeke Elliott, and then another rookie running back down here, and Keaton Mitchell, who I actually made a mistake. And then shortly after this startup, I had released him after he went to the Ravens. He was undrafted, obviously. But it's like I had the foresight at the time, but then I ultimately should have stuck to my guns. And that's a huge, huge lesson, I think, that we all got to learn, especially with some of these rookies. Just figure out ways to kind of circumvent, hold as many rookies as you really can probably on your roster, whether you have a taxi or not, or IR or not, whatever it might be, just to give you that kind of relatively inflated, just that potential to maybe realize some value. So just lesson learned, don't drop rookies necessarily, especially pre-training camp, if they're even on the team or not, right? And then moving on down, I had gone Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, older running backs again, and then Jonathan Mingo in the 20th round, and then in Tank Dell, 21st round. Huge, huge, huge pickup for me in value that played out really well, that we'll get to in a little bit. Looking at the state of my team now and the trades I'd made in season 2023. But Tucker Kraft, even a nice pickup there. Robert Woods, and then even a Jake Hayner there, a Travion Williams there, not really worked out whatsoever, but even a Michael Wilson and a down the board here, Trey Tucker, some shots at receiver, which, look, potential to realize some value, maybe go up in 2024. So just putting yourself in those positions to really, as we round out the rest of this draft, nothing too special, putting yourself in position in startups to actually realize some upside and just take shots on players. Because why, looking back, I know I can play hindsight draft analyst myself, why take a bet on a Michael Gallup right at the 16th round? Why take a bet? No offense directly to him. Why take shots on even a Darnell Mooney to some degree on the 12th round when you could have gotten a Devon Achane, right? That's just some food for thought, some context, especially if you're drafting now in a pre-NFL draft startup. So, guys, that was kind of the startup review. Actually, right before we end this, it's important to note, you see, well, an A.J. Brown there. That was a mistake I'd made again, where I had traded up as an Eagles fan, right? I traded up back when it was around this 7th, 8th round, the second day, so to speak, of our draft. I had said, oh my God, I got to get A.J. Brown a BAM tier receiver because I want to contend. I want to contend with my elite rushing quarterbacks upside and with a Travis Kelce, right? Oh, I got to contend. So I gave up a 2024 first round pick I have, a 2025 first round pick I have. I gave away my first round picks in a startup, which again is such a risky bet and you're dancing with the devil, so to speak. But man, for me, I got lucky. Okay, I got lucky, and we'll get into how exactly moves I made in the startup really facilitated and built myself some cushion and some liquidity further down the line, guys. So let's get into that. So as we move on now to the state of my team and how it looks. It's the thumbnail of this video. It's Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, right? Held on to Jalen Hurts, picked him where I did, the 103. And I'm honestly not feeling all that worried. I know he's basically maybe a 105, 106 type pick right now, but guys, in this type of league, especially when it's only 4-point pass touchdown, that rushing upside with these hammer quarterbacks, shot at trades in 5, if you know, you know, those quarterbacks just are who I want to construct my team around, point blank. And then a David Montgomery as well. Obviously, Achane. You saw A.J. Brown, drafted him, so held on to him as I did with Kelce. And then Hopkins, Lockett. Kind of, we'll get into Hopkins. He came kind of back into my roster circuitously a little bit. Drafted him, traded him, then traded back for him again. And so let's just address the elephant in the room. Well, I didn't draft Josh Allen, didn't get him in the startup, right? I made a big mistake in the startup where I paid up, really gave myself no chance to stack, 2 quarterbacks. And even in this market, guys, you are so hard pressed to be able to get to 2 top picks, top half even of the first round picks in startups, right? That's just such an uphill battle. But how was I able to get there to Josh Allen? Well, frankly, I turned Anthony Richardson into Trevor Lawrence. So how did I do that? I traded, let's pull up D Hop here. I traded away D Hop, Elliott, Tillman. This was all the way back in June, and then got a Jaden Reed, even as you see, and Alexander Madison. So that was a nice little rookie bet that made sense to just take the upside swing. This was a post NFL draft May. We're talking middle of June. This trade was made, so I didn't have a D Hop necessarily, but I did, as you saw, an A Rich, a Zay Flowers. My initial startup, some of my startup picks in October. End of October, I traded away A Rich, Flowers, a 2024 fourth. I got back D Hop, but I really got back Trevor Lawrence, Mike Evans, some pieces that would help me contend, so to speak, right? Well, Trevor Lawrence, just even getting that quarterback, who at the time, look, they're relatively equal in value in terms of dynasty value, right? But just for me, getting that healthy quarterback really put me in a spot to hopefully, in theory, make a run, get into playoff position, because I had a very slow start, guys. I lost a handful of games really outside of the playoff position. So I thought, with this trade, I get Trevor Lawrence, I give me a chance. I give myself a chance to make a push. But little did I know, I was able to turn Trevor Lawrence at that time, went back to that same owner, and actually got a Josh Allen, David Montgomery package by trading away that Trevor Lawrence I'd picked up, and then adding in a Tank Dell, who I picked up in the startup, as you saw, in the 21st round, a Dalton Kincaid, who I'd picked the 7th round, who I was mocked and ridiculed, coincidentally enough, I believe by the same person who had criticized me at that pick at the time. I trade him Dalton Kincaid. So that was kind of a little sweet revenge, so to speak, in a way, but not revenge for me because it was just incredible value to get a Josh Allen and even that RB type, that second really competent, reliable running back. Although with A-Chain, obviously injury history, so that played a bit of a problem in and of itself. But getting that number one true hammer quarterback in this format, just unbelievable, unbelievable importance for me. And you see the lineup here. It's a start 10 league, right? This puts me in position to very much contend for next year to run it back, right? And especially with a guy like Kelsey, he was the value I thought to contend at the time at that 405. And he's just a player where, look, if you have him, he's so illiquid. You can't really move him because no one's really giving you that fair value for necessarily the chance at a guy that's could be tight end one by a landslide, right? In a fantasy sense, but it's obviously a dynasty league, so everybody has to make that individual bet, that individual call on a very delicate production versus projection, the state of their overarching team, right, in their roster dynamic. So got those contention pieces with the quarterbacks, with the running backs, with an A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, Kelsey, and then a nice bonus with that Jaden Reed I'd picked up by trading away Hopkins for a split second, right? Post the startup draft, pre the NFL start of the season in 2023. And so looking at good pieces, good flexible, it's a full PPR league, so one PPR, you want those receivers. There's no really ancillary running back bonuses necessarily. And scrolling down, look, I really need to address, I don't have a QB. I don't have a QB3. And so that's potentially, I hope Jimmy G goes somewhere, right? I hope he maybe goes somewhere. Maybe, look, Minnesota, if they can't really trade up or they can't, they lose Kirk Cousins. So one to monitor there, but if I can, if the deal makes sense, I could possibly move off of one of these flex receivers to maybe get a decent QB shot, plus maybe a older or not as sexier running back or receiver flex option. But I do have, given that it's a 0.5 tight end premium league, a bunch of just bodies at quarterback, running back, receiver even, although it's with Mingo and Wilson, those are some upside plays there. Hoping for them to be threshold guys, right? Like shout out to Scott Connor. I've got a Dalton Schultz, nice tight end insurance there. Traded away a second round pick there. And I've got a Tucker Kraft, a nice upside play there. We'll see what the future holds there in Green Bay. And then Trey Tucker as well, Kendrick Bourne, I mentioned him earlier. I don't have any picks, guys. I don't have any picks in this year's draft. I don't have any first round pick in 2025. So look, I'm not gonna really be able to add, but it's not really crippling me, or I'm not too worried about that because I'll figure out a way to scrape by. And I've got enough, I think, start their opportunities, some shots to potentially capture a little Michael Wilson maybe bump in the season, maybe a Jonathan Mingo bump, right? There's so much time to be played out, and we'll see where a guy like Alexander Madison goes, right? We'll see what happens there with Eric Gray, what happens with no Saquon, right? Maybe Fournette goes somewhere, maybe Kareem Hunt goes somewhere, maybe Garoppolo goes somewhere. So really thin, so to speak, at certain positions, but very much positioned to be a contender. And so I'll just transition now to the state of the league, the other teams that are really going to compete against, that I competed against in obviously the playoffs ultimately, because I was able to, with Josh Allen, of course, and Jalen Hurts at the helm, and the running backs, the receivers, I was able to turn it around, so to speak, right the ship, just put up points on the board to get into the playoffs, right? But not a bye team. But I ultimately did fall short, to be clear. I didn't win the chip, but some things kind of just went wrong. Didn't quite get a good first week there in the wild card round, so to speak, of the playoffs. But fully positioned to just run it back. This, I feel like, is a good way to just kind of get a broad overview, kind of color-coded, right, the positions, just to gain a sense of what the rest of the league looks like. And keeping in mind, guys, this is weird. There is a team that's open, some person left, so this doesn't really account for one team. but they're kind of a non-factor. It's going to be an orphan for a reason. No offense. It's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle for that team to really contend. But so working with the current landscape of this team that I have and the teams that I'm going to be playing against, look, going left to right here, this first team, you got a Kyler, you got a Herbert, you have a Jordan Love. So they're stacked at QB. They're going to have their two, set it and forget it. They're going to have two really good ones at all times, unless they make additional moves. They've got ETN as their RB1. They've got some other good upside plays with a Tyjae Spears, right? And then they've got even guys like Gus Edwards, just plug and chug, guys that aren't the sexiest, but in a position where could get you some fantasy points when it matters. And then scrolling down, receiver, really looking good there with a McLaurin and Ayuk, with a Jalen Waddle all the way kind of tucked in away down here. Khalil Shakir, Pop Douglas, upside plays there. Shaheed, Hollywood Brown, we'll see where he goes in free agency. Trey Palmer, Keenan Allen, Pittman. So this team is stacked up and down. TJ Hawkinson and Njoku as well, but they don't have any picks until really the third round of this year, so kind of in the same position as me. And so I stack them up. Look, my quarterbacks in this lineup league, right, can compete with his two quarterbacks and really anybody in the league. And I look at the receivers with, look, that little Hurts to A.J. Brown stack with Mike Evans back there in Tampa, and assuming Baker as well, a nice season there. And then, of course, we talked about some guys like a Jaden Reed, D-Hop, Lockett, and, of course, Travis Kelce, Dalton Schultz, guys that I can fill a lineup week in, week out to compete. This guy, Deshaun, really no quarterbacks. Brees Hall, which is nice. Some other throws at the position. And then he's got a Metcalf, Addison, London. So some younger receivers. Definitely not a contender, right? Because he has constructed his team in a way that, look, he's got a bevy of first-round draft picks. And then going over to the champion who just won this past year, Lamar and Baker. So hanging on by a thread there in terms of quarterback value. But had a CMC, a Pacheco, Warren, a Ridley, Deontay Johnson, Tank Dell, Waller, Ingram. So it's really interesting how this team won. Honestly, a bit of a fluke type season. No disrespect, to be honest. And look, they don't even have a first round pick to really upgrade either. They've got a 201, which is nice in this draft. Nice. But all in all, the contender, not really a team that scares me compared to what I have and what I'm able to start, to be honest. So moving over, a good team with a Tua and a decent, week to week, hopefully a Kirk Cousins healthy, put up some points. So he's okay there, but again, I like how I stack up at that position, especially a quarterback. And then he's got Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron, Singletary, a Algier, Moss, some random guys, right? A Brian Robinson. So some guys that are nice that were nice last year in particular, but no guarantee with the situation that it might be a carryover in terms of that production necessarily. And then receiver, he got, Puka, a great find for him. Olave, Debo, of course. So he's set there. He's definitely stocked at receiver pretty nicely, relatively. And he's got Sam Laporta as well. So, and in Mark Andrews. So he is definitely a type of contender level team. And then moving over, you're looking at a Pat Mahomes, a Minshew, Russell Wilson. Just have Mahomes and then look, and Aaron Rodgers even. So definitely by default of Mahomes, a competitor for sure. And so you look down further, the contender status, I think, is only bolstered, right, by a Kamara, White, Derrick Henry, Raheem Mostert type of running back room with a Adams, Diggs, a Justin Jefferson, especially a Justin Jefferson receiver room. Although we'll see who's throwing him the ball, right? Christian Kirk, Sutton. He's got a Trey McBride at tight end. So definitely a team that, look, can contend and compete, but as you'll see, no real picks to speak of for this to upgrade for this impending 2024 season. And then you look, this is where this team here, he's got Stroud, and then we'll scroll down quick. Stroud and nothing else. He's got Stroud, he's got bodies at running back, some rookies there. Stroud and a Rashee Rice. Okay, I'll give him that. He's got Rashee Rice. And then he's got all of these picks, and it's actually not even shown. He's got the 104 as well. So he's got all of these first round picks. There are only 3 teams that hold first round picks in this league, which is insane. There is such a just stronghold monopoly, so to speak, oligopolies, I guess, in a way, of first round picks this year that it's just almost like a game of chicken, right? We'll see what you want to do. If you want to make all those picks, go ahead. But I'm maybe in a spot where I look at his 108, 109 range. Maybe I can turn a receiver like add to a Jaden Reed maybe a little bit. I throw a Jaden Reed and a pick any type of. I mean, it's hard for me to find a guy, so it actually doesn't really make sense for me to maybe move back and get a player in the first. I might look to trade for a couple second round picks. That could be a trade I could look to make. A Jaden Reed for a bunch of early seconds. I could consider that. But so that's just a context with that team. Nowhere near a contender necessarily. Really a true rebuilder. Then look at this other team who I had made the trade. I'm pretty sure I made the trade with him, giving up my 108. Didn't look that great at the time, but ultimately some picks, as I've said ad nauseum, broken record here. Rookie upside plays put me in position to where I am right now. And so you look at this team, a Dak, a hell of a bunch of just mid quarterbacks. But he's got, James Conner, Ken Walker, okay. Jacobs, all right. Charbonnet, okay. Ford, okay. He's got CD and Amonra, though. Incredible receiver duo. Plus a Cup. Plus, we'll see what happens with some of these other receivers, especially with Michael Thomas, a Chris Godwin, Brandon Cooks, and then he's got a Dallas Goedert there, so a nice tight end. But again, nothing truly threatening my ability this year to contend. And again, a team with no picks to add this year. And you look at the guy I was able to trade with a couple of times to really put me in a position, right? He's got Burrow, he's got A-Rich, so a great quarterback room there, but hurt. So we'll see. Assuming though they're all back, they'll be healthy start of this upcoming season. But he was a guy that, look, a really top pick in the startup where he had a Josh Allen, right? Who ended up trading for him, took away his Josh Allen. He was a bona fide contender looking so good at the time of the startup. And oh my God, for the longest time, even into the middle of the season, looks awesome. But it just shows how things can really switch on a dime, right? How you can almost change, and now people in general in your league might be so reactionary and just change their trajectory altogether and overreact in the moment. But Ty Chandler, really no running backs. He's got his Keaton Mitchell there, picked him off me from waivers, so he kind of got maybe a little bit of a laugh there from me in terms of revenge. But Garrett Wilson, is a great receiver he's got. And then, Watson, Dobbs, nothing too crazy at receiver. And then he's got a Kincaid, right, that I traded him. And some young upside plays at tight end. And then he's got a 112, so that's what he can really add. And then a an early second round pick from the orphan team. But then really nothing to truly add. And then you look, these last couple teams, Field, Stafford, Daniel Jones, okay, nothing crazy at quarterback. Barkley, Gibbs, Jones, Hubbard, Pierce. I mean, contention type running backs, but doesn't really have the quarterback play to necessarily ensure that he is a true contender. He's got a Tyreek Hill, though. He's got Nico Collins, DJ Moore, Cooper. So some really nice, basically 4 of his starting lineup positions. So 2 receivers plus 2 flexes, 2 of his flex positions for sure. But then nothing too crazy beyond that. And again, this is a lineup league, so it's not like maybe you get lucky by the sheer quantity in a best ball type format week to week. And then you got a George Kittle, so that's a nice piece there. But what do you know? Again, no first round pick. He only has really the chance to address, maybe bolster his team with some dart throws, late second, third, fourth round pick. And then last but not least, another relative contender, quote unquote, has some pieces where he's got a Purdy, Deshaun Watson, though, doesn't count really for true contention. Purdy and a Trevor Lawrence. I think, his quarterback room looks okay there. A Mixon, Gibbs, Swift, some decent running backs there. But nothing crazy, nothing game breaking. And then a T. Higgins, Adam Thielen, Zay Flowers. So maybe I just overrated this team, honestly. I think it's definitely the case. I mean, he's got Kyle Pitts, but nothing too crazy. And what do you know? Doesn't have a pick till the 311. So just an insane landscape, guys, for this particular league of just some people hoarding the picks and almost forcing me, or just indirectly helping me as a contender, and just firmly amongst 2-3 teams or so in this league that, they control the card, so to speak, these teams that have all these draft picks, but it would have to take two to tango, right? And two teams to make trades to where the point it's a give and a take, right? We'll see how it plays out in the long run, but I am truly, I think, as well positioned as anybody to be one of those top two to get a bye, hopefully next year. Guys, that does it for the first iteration of the League Landscape series. Let me know what you think of my team. What do you think of maybe the league in general? Things I touched on, strategy, anything in between, trade suggestions. Let me know. Drop it in the comments. Love the interaction. Interact with each and every one of you guys. And look, we're on the road to 1K by draft day. So if I haven't earned your sub yet, let me know in the comments why. We are growing and building something special here. Let me know what other type of videos you want to see. We're going to have another live stream shortly in the near future. So be prepared for that. But that does it for this video, guys. Have a great night. I will see you in the next one.